Hello friends, welcome to this Sunday's worship for Trinity United Church and for many friends and family near and far. We're so glad that you're able to join us today. Now, you don't have your calendar wrong. It is just still toward the end of November in our liturgical year. This is the last Sunday before we start Advent and Christmas. But I just wanted to help us to get ready for the season that is coming. But first, I want to extend a gratitude to Peter Gill from Chalmers Community Services, who shared so many insights and his experience of working with Chalmers for our message time today. I met with him this week in their downtown site, and in light of the gospel reading for this Sunday about Jesus' words that even though you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me. It just is a good reminder to us of this season of upcoming giving and gifts and all the things that we associate with this time of year, how important it is to remember those who are less fortunate and those who are struggling. And particularly in these pandemic times, that's certainly an area for us to both pray about and also to take some action, to be willing to be supportive to those in the greatest need. So Peter's insights were most helpful, so I hope you'll stay tuned and listen to my time spent with him, listening to what's been happening at Chalmers Community Services, which is, of course, a partnership, part of our Guelph United Ministries here in Guelph. So this Sunday, the last Sunday of our liturgical year, part of what we're doing is also getting ready for the season to come. As I said, Advent, it's a time of preparation. And part of the preparation that we are making as your leaders of ministry and worship, in the days ahead, normally we would be gathering in the sanctuary and having our Advent candle lighting. And this year, of course, it's different. So I'm working hard to make something happen here for you in your homes. So bear with me as I try to just give you a little introduction to what I'm going to call, whether you call it a sacred space, a holy place, maybe even in terms of a simple Advent wreath that you might put on your kitchen table or something that you might have on a little quiet place somewhere in your home. We're really creating a sense of worship space within your home when you can't actually go to the sanctuary to worship together this season. So I'm inviting you to get creative. And I know some of you might say, oh, I'm not creative, I can't do this sort of thing, but I'm just going to show you here in a second how simple it can be. So what I'm encouraging each of us to do in this upcoming week, so that we're ready for next Sunday, is to prepare a little worship space in your home. Particularly it could be around a candle, or if you want in particular around our Advent wreath or Advent candle lighting. So it's very simple to set something up like that in your home. So let me just move the camera here a little bit, and then I'll show you some of the things that I've put together here. I'm just going to back up a bit so that I can show you on my table here what I've done. So here we have just a variety of things that I've put together. Some of them are just really, really simple, and I know you have these things at home, so it's not too hard. So this is just actually what was left over from an old florist arrangement that I'd had given to me. So I kept the sponge and the tray, and I have some of the little bits to hold candles. So this would be a very simple thing. If you had some greenery in your backyard, you could just get one of these florist little green bricks, and you could put some greenery in that and add some other candles around, and you could set that in the center of a table, and that would be a very nice place to do your candle lighting. Something a little bit closer here. I'm going to see if I can get it in for you. There he is. This is just a simple cutting board that I took out of my pantry, and many of us have some mason jars sitting at home, and I don't know about you, but I always seem to have a bag of leftover decorations lying around. So I just collected some old pine cones and some old mismatched Christmas balls, and just set the mason jars on the cutting board, and there you have it. You have a portable little space that you can put candles inside, whether it's little tea lights, or actually what I've done here, you can pick these up even at your dollar store, and they're little battery operated lights. You can simply turn them on, switch on, there's your light, and you can just put those in your jar. So for each week as it comes along, you can just add another light for our hope, joy, peace, and love as we light our candles for Advent. So very simple thing to do. And then I'm just going to scoot along one more little spot here and show you. And again, this is just a simple serving tray. It's an old silver tray. Many of you have some of those in your buffets. And I've just brought out a collection of candles that I had left over from some other things and just set them on the tray and created the 4 different candles. So each week as we go through Advent, we can add another candle. And that's a lovely way of putting something together either on a coffee table or a side table or even your kitchen table. And then my last little example here, if you can see it again, just some of these things that I find around the house. This was, again, something left over from a basket of bread or something that I received. So it's just a woven little platter. And again, if you just happen to have some of those leftover Christmas balls and things, a little bit of ribbon, you could add the different candles in here, each for each week of Advent. And it's really easy. There, you think that I have extra creative abilities? Well, listen, all you have to do is just put some balls around in a little basket like that and add some more candles so that you have enough to cover all the Sundays of Advent. And there you go. You've got another little Advent worship center for in your home. And so you're ready for all the seasons that we have to do lighting of our candles each week. So simple, not too hard to put together. And it's my hope that as this season approaches us, that you'll just enjoy the time to perhaps get creative with family or friends or maybe some grandchildren and set up a place for worship each week so you can join us during our candle lighting for Advent and into Christmas Eve. So friends, now it's time for us to get on with our worship of this day, and pray that you will be blessed in our time together as we worship. And again, gratitude for all those of you who have contributed to make this week's service such a special moment for all of us to gather. So blessings, my friends, and let's worship together.
Now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God. Come. One day every tongue will confess you are God. One day every knee will bow. Still the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God. Come. Willingly we choose to surrender our lives. Willingly our knees will bow. With all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, we gladly choose you now. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come, just are to worship. Come just as you are before your God. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come just as you are to worship. Come just as you are before your God.
Hi, everyone. Were you good detectives last week? Did you talk to people in your family? And did you figure out what kind of love that they like the best? And what kind of love you like the best? You know, there's no wrong kind of love. It's just that sometimes we pay attention to certain kinds of love because it's almost like it has bright lights around it because it's our love language. So if we really, really want to do a good job of filling up somebody's love tank, then we have to pay attention to what kind of love they prefer the most. So for someone that wants quality time, they want someone's full attention, and they don't like to have it interrupted because it's so special and precious to them. And being with someone and having that full attention makes them feel special and loved. That could be time talking or playing a game or watching TV, going to a hockey game, going to a restaurant together. Anything that makes your connection deeper. If you like physical touch, you like hugs and high fives and kisses and holding hands. And that makes you feel safe and loved. And it means the person is there and they're accessible to you. If you like acts of service, you really, really appreciate when people do things out of love for you. Not because they have to, because they want to show that they love you. And that helps the person feel like their feelings really matter. And if you like acts of service as your love language, then the words "let me help you" mean a lot to you. What if you like receiving gifts as your love language? You appreciate that people have thought hard and given lots of effort to make something really meaningful to you. And this is not the same thing as materialism. It's something a little different because it's the meaning behind the gift and the thought that got put into it that makes it so very special, if that's your love language. And if you like affirming words, you want genuine compliments, and you love to hear someone say, "I love you." You like hearing the reasons behind the words. That's really important to you. And kind, encouraging words, they mean so much to you. So could you figure out which one was the most important love language for you? If you can't figure it out, you can go on the 5 Love Languages website, and there's a quiz for kids, and there's a quiz for grown-ups, and you can figure out which love language is yours. So, we're going to try very hard to not assume that people feel the same way we do when we try to give what we would like back, because that doesn't always work. So that is how the love languages work. Jesus was an expert in love. He did all those things with his disciples. He spent quality time with them alone, talking just to them. He told them that they could do things when he was gone, and he believed in them that they could do wonderful things. He believed in acts of service. He helped people all the time. Sometimes he broke rules of the time because he wanted to help people so badly. He didn't want the rules to get in the way of helping somebody. He touched people. He healed people. So Jesus is our example. And as we go into the season of Advent, we will remember all these ways of showing love. Have a good week, everybody.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, worship God's holy name. Sing like never
scripture reading this morning is from Matthew the 25, verses 31 to 46, from the Message, the sheep and the goats. When he finally arrives, blazing in beauty, and all his angels with him, the Son of Man will take his place on his glorious throne. Then all the nations will be arranged before him, and he will sort the people out, much as a shepherd sorts out sheep and goats, putting sheep to his right and goats to his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Enter you who are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in his kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation, and here's why. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was homeless, and you gave me a room. I was shivering, and you gave me clothes. I was sick, and you stopped to visit. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then those sheep are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we ever see you sick or in prison and come to you?" Then the king will say, "I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it for me." Then he will turn to the goats, the ones on his left, and say, "Get out, worthless goats. You're good for nothing but the fires of hell." And why? Because I was hungry, and you gave me no meal. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was homeless, and you gave me no bed. I was shivering, and you gave me no clothes. Sick and in prison, and you never visited. Then those goats are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry, or thirsty, or homeless, or shivering, or sick, or in prison, and didn't help?" And he will answer them, "I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you failed to do one of these things to someone who was being overlooked or ignored, that was me. You failed to do it for me." Then those goats will be herded to their eternal doom, but the sheep to their eternal reward. Amen.
Well, it's my privilege to welcome you today, and I'll let you introduce yourself to our folks that are gathered here.
Thank you. So my name is Peter Gill. I'm the Volunteer Executive Director at Chalmers Community Services Center, and we happen to be in the downtown location this morning to have our chat.
That's great. Peter, I was curious, how did you first start being involved in what we would call outreach ministry? I suspect that maybe at the time, maybe that wasn't what it was referred to for you.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it was called, but I think my first real involvement was when my wife used to coordinate the Saturday night suppers at Royal City Church, which is now Royal City Mission, which was the former Chalmers United Church. And so for a number of years before I got involved with Chalmers, I used to help greet people there. And from there I sort of transitioned into a kind of part-time role at Chalmers. I was still working at the time. And so a gentleman who used to love doing an organization chart called me the junior clothing consultant.
Oh.
So I was involved with helping pick clothing out for guests. And that was probably about 10 years ago. And then since then I've taken on a board role as chair, and more recently as a sort of volunteer ED. So I don't know what it was called back in those days, outreach ministry, but it may have been something similar.
Great. Oh, that's marvelous. And so you've been connected with Chalmers for over 10 years?
About
now?
10 years, yeah.
Fabulous. How do you think the COVID pandemic has impacted the needs in the community for places like Chalmers? What differences have you noticed?
Well, huge differences in many ways. Well, first of all, for our organization, we have pared it down to food distribution only. So we don't have any clothing or household items or bedding, that kind of thing to offer. We've done away with our cafe mornings, both here and at our west location at Three Willows Church. We have no mending. We really don't have a chance to socialize terribly much with our guests, which for many of them is a huge loss, because as you probably know, people that live in poverty often live in isolation, and for them to be able to even come here on a Friday or Wednesday or out west on a Thursday and just hang around for a while, have a coffee and a snack is part of their week and part of their, if you like, almost their therapy. So we haven't been able to do any of that. Also, of course, there have been additional demands for food. Our food budget has skyrocketed this year, primarily because people are just coming and there's more people coming. So, and we're not the only people experiencing that. There are other agencies in town that are also experiencing the same kind of demand. So, yeah, it's been really difficult, challenging. We've also, back when the COVID first started, we decided to bench or fire or whatever all of our volunteers over the age of 70, which included me at the time. So that carried on for a few months, and then we decided to gradually kind of loosen that a little bit. So a number of our volunteers, and we have about 80 or 90 volunteers, so a number of those volunteers that have come back are over the age of 70. We had a number that were under the age anyway, so we were okay in terms of being able to have a bare bones operation. But now that we're kind of opening things up a little bit more, we're gradually reintroducing more volunteers. So that's been very helpful. The other thing that's been, and it's kind of like a double whammy in a way. So COVID hit, schools shut, churches closed, and so on. So our in-kind donations really dropped off considerably. Actually, in some cases, almost to nothing. So we've had very few food drives. We've had, the community's been great. We've been able to get more financial donations, and United Way, Guelph Community Foundation, and so on. They've really stepped up, as have churches like Trinity and many others. But those in-kind donations just basically dried up.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. I was thinking that besides our donations, are there ways that individuals or groups in the community might be more supportive? Are there areas where you really feel that there's something lacking, or that there's more help that people could respond to?
Well, I think at the moment, I would say the most significant thing for us would be financial donations. We purchase, this year I think we're going to purchase close to $120,000 worth of food. Last year it was about, I think we budgeted this year for $90,000, so we're way over that. Last year it was about $80,000. So I think financial donations are probably the number one thing right now. We're just entering into the pre-Christmas season, so our Christmas bag program, which I know Trinity's always been very supportive of, is just getting underway. And for many of our guests, the Christmas bag that we give out, it's kind of unique in the city because there are other organizations that give out things for children, toys, etc. And there are Christmas hampers, but the actual Christmas bag that we offer is a little bit unique in that people get socks and a hat and gloves and some coffee and some tea and chocolate, that kind of thing. So for many people, that's the only gift they get at Christmas. So we're very grateful for the support we get. We usually receive about 700 or 800 Christmas bags a year. And pretty soon now, some of our guests are going to start saying, when do you hand out your Christmas bags? So that is one thing that, I would say right now that would be very helpful. And financial donations are always helpful. I think encouragement and support, also interest in what we're doing. Those are kind of like a little less tangible, but they're also important.
Sure. It kind of puts things in perspective as far as Christmas, when we think of our typical shopping and gift giving, that just those practical things can really mean so much to an individual that really has next to nothing. Right. So that's a good reminder to us.
Right.
I was thinking, so often we hear about for a multitude of different organizations that assist those that are living in poverty or the working poor, and often you'll hear somebody spat out that Bible quote attributed to Jesus that says, well, the poor you will always have with you. And I was just curious if you've heard that yourself, or when you've reflected on it, how you answer or respond to that kind of a statement.
Right. So interestingly, because we actually communicated yesterday about this, and I was thinking back to a couple of years ago, I did a little message at Harcourt, where I attend, And that was part of the lectionary that day. So, yeah, I have difficulty with that taken in isolation, I think out of context, because if I think about it, I'm positive that Jesus would not say we should have a perennial poverty. I can't imagine that he would ever say that. And in fact, I think if Jesus was alive today, I see him in places like St. George's Square with people who are kind of homeless, or the library where people go for warmth this time of the year. I don't see him preaching at the front of one of our churches necessarily, because he'd be preaching kind of to the converted and so on. I think but anyway, going back a couple of years to when I was speaking at Harcourt, I actually and I'm not a scholar of this at all, but I actually went back and looked at what the context of it was, and I think that Jesus was kind of referring to, I think it was Deuteronomy or something like that, where he talks about, or God talks about Jubilee and about Sabbath. And so he's talking about wiping the slate clean, forgiveness of debt, that kind of thing. So I think the idea there, and I mean it's a utopian idea, but I think the idea was that we should not have poverty. Poverty should not exist in the world. So I think that, well, if you take Jesus' little quotation on its own, it sounds harsh and it doesn't sound like it would be in character. I think if you go back to the origin, and that's what I'm remembering from when I did that kind of research a couple of years ago, and you're probably more familiar with it than I am.
Well, no, I was kind of curious too. So I actually looked up that Deuteronomy passage, and it's chapter 15, verse 11. It says, "Poor persons will never disappear from the earth. That's why I'm giving you this command. You must open your hand generously to your fellow Israelites, to the needy among you, and to the poor who live with you in your land." So I thought that was really, I've only ever really heard the reference that Jesus, put into Jesus' mouth, and when he spoke those words, he would have been remembering his teachings from Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
And in the context of Jesus responding, he said, "The poor you'll have among you, but I won't always be here."
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't actually a statement about the poor. They only chopped off half the statement, but it's very clear, and Jesus would have known this from his teachings, and as you referenced, the Jubilee year, the forgiveness of debt, like there's an understanding that people run into hard times, and it's not our place to judge them, it's our place to help.
Yeah.
And we can, each of us find ourselves in those situations, and we were talking a bit about on the CBC this morning, they were discussing NHL players that have become homeless and who had millions and dined with kings and queens and celebrities and what have you, and finding themselves 10, 15, 20 years down the road penniless and living on the street. So it's just too much for us to imagine that it's somebody else's problem, because one day it could be any of us, really. So I think that's what we're learning.
Yeah, and I think in terms of that sort of judgment piece, one of the things and I do a fair bit of speaking on behalf of Chalmers, and I know that one of our, and you probably know this, but we have no proof of need or proof of income when people come here. We refer to them as guests, and that goes back to a fairly old board decision that we were going to call them guests as a welcoming, a sign of welcome, as opposed to clients or members or whatever. So people say to me, well, how do you know people deserve? And that's such a loaded question. And my answer is pretty simple, that we don't know who deserves. I mean, the person that drives up with a new car may have been laid off yesterday, or they may have just had some catastrophic accident or illness or separation or all kinds of circumstances. So I think to raise the bar to exclude people who we think don't deserve really takes away from the philosophy of what Chalmers is about, and what I think that what we need to portray to our guests. So judgment is, and I think the other thing is that for many people who are in need and in poverty, stigma is a huge thing. For them to come to somewhere like this, or to the food bank, or the North End Harvest Market and so on, those places, while they are really doing their best, sometimes people can't help but say, should I really be here? I mean, there's that kind of shame that's sort of attached to it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really critical part.
Yeah. Any other comments or subjects that you want to share with us before we close up our time together?
Well, I've got one particular thing I want to address to the Trinity folk, and I will do that in a second. I think the thing that about Chalmers and its mission right now is, in addition to what we're doing in terms of food, if I go back to pre-COVID, people who live with scarcity often live with many challenges. So it could be drug addictions, or it could be mental health or abuse or what have you. And one of the things that we've learned here is that this is more than just about feeding the body. This has got to be about feeding the soul as well. So, for example, we've had naloxone training here. We've had mental health first aid training. We've visited the safe injection site. We've had de-escalation training. So we're not counselors, but we are trying to understand that our mission is not just to simply hand out food. We need to be more than that. So that's what I would say about Chalmers and its kind of overriding mission. But I think, but in terms of Trinity, I wanted to say this, and I was kind of thinking about this because we occasionally run across each other when we're walking. So it occurred to me that I needed to sort of send this message of thanks to Trinity. So one day I came out of my house and there was this huge pile of non-perishable food on my porch. You know where I live, so on my porch. So there was like 400 odd pounds there, which came from Contact Place. There was a similar amount that actually went to our west location, I think a few days later. So to those people that made that decision to close Contact Place, I'm sure that it was a very difficult thing to do, because you'd been in business for many years. But we were the beneficiaries of a lot of food at that time when, as I said, in-kind donations were really drying up. So thank you for that. And thank you also for the financial contributions that you've made over the last little while. And I got a lovely email, I think it was from Ken Chupa, saying that Trinity is looking out, looking into the world, looking outward, and that I think you're manifesting that with your support of Chalmers. We are currently in the interviewing process, in the hiring process of an executive director. It'll be a part-time position, so I'm going to be stepping back, and somebody will come in that's actually paid to do this job. And I know Trinity has stepped up and helped us financially with that, with a commitment over a period of time. So thank you to all those folks at Trinity that have really come forward and really helped our ministry at this time.
Well, our gratitude is extended to you, Peter, and all the folk who work here at Chalmers Community Services, and we recognize that this is such a vital outreach. And I think understanding working with the poor or the disadvantaged, so often we just think in terms of our own generosity, what we can give. But I think you put into action those things that we can give or share with you. But you put it into action and programs and actually face-to-face contact with those that are in the most need. And we are grateful for all that you do in that way, and everyone that works with you. So thank you. Thank you for this time this morning. I really appreciate that we could not just hear the scripture about what it is to feed the hungry and clothe the naked and visit those who need company, but you've really made it real. And so thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
There's a hungry one lives in the these are homeless, the battered, the frightened. All of these are hopeless, the dying. All of these are me.
Hi, friends. It's John Benham here on the last Sunday of the church calendar year, Reign of Christ. And as we reflect on this last day of the church calendar, we know it's been an unprecedented year. And I thought it'd be really nice to share prayers today outside as it's cooling down, but God's creation is still quite a beautiful experience. In a few minutes, I'm going to take you over to the Trinity sign and remind us of the outdoor Christmas market, say a few words. But let me start by saying a happy birthday to Kathy Prentice. Kathy, we heard that you had a special birthday, and so we're thinking about you this past Thursday. We also think about Helen McCrossan. Helen passed away, I think in her 95th year, up at the Strathcona Nursing Home in Mount Forest. We're laying Helen to rest in the Woodlawn Cemetery, and we're very grateful for the life that she's lived, her faith, and she came faithfully every Sunday that she could, and that was the help of Reverend David Chesney, the late David, and of course Heather. And we just have really special memories here at Trinity, and I know Norfolk does as well, her many dedicated years. So to her family and to her group of friends, we hold you all in prayers after a life well lived to Helen. And so, my friends, as we come to pray on this Sunday, a friend of mine in downtown Toronto was reflecting on how in parts of Toronto you can see lineups of people outside places in churches where people are used to being fed, usually in church basements. And now they're on the streets, and it's almost an image of the 1920s. Hundreds of people, some with masks, some without them, just lining up for food. And as the scriptures and the message that we've heard this morning, we are reminded that God cares about the least of these. So let us come together in prayer. Oh God, you know these are challenging times for all of us. And you recognize that sacrifice is never easy, because you're human, oh God, and you understand our struggles at times when these days of COVID challenge us to take precautions and to be extra concerned, not just about ourselves, but about the most vulnerable. So we thank you, oh God, for the ways that, whether it's the leadership here at Trinity, the leadership of the province or the country, around the world, for those who are working very consciously to make sure people are cared for. We especially remember those on the front line. They're in ICUs and they're in ERs, and they are taking care of people with COVID, but people battling cancer, people battling all kinds of diseases. Now we are grateful, oh God, for that love and care. There's glimmers of hope this week, oh God, and for the scientists and the hopeful news that vaccines are coming. We are still called to be extremely patient and to be persistent. And we want to continue to pray for our teachers and educators, custodians, administration, students and staff. And we realize how important it is that they take care of each other and we hold them in our prayers. This morning I want to lift up those who are grieving and ask, oh God, for you to comfort them. And bless especially the least of these, O God, those who are often forgotten, those without family, those living on the street, those who battle addiction every day, those who live with chronic pain, mental illness, those who live with MS or Parkinson's, cystic fibrosis. We pray, O God, for the dear people of Trinity as we seek to have a very joyful event this coming Thursday. A market outdoors. Safety is our number one concern, but we hope a little bit of spirit of Christmas and love will shine extra bright here on the lawn of Trinity. We hold all the Guelph United Ministries in our prayers, O God, but we hold all churches, all congregations, and in fact all faiths as we seek to draw closer together in unity and in a sense of hope for this world. And now I'm going to invite each of you to whisper very quietly the prayers that you have. The sun is shining right now, quite beautifully here. So let the sunshine of God bless you now as you quietly pray. And after you've offered your personal prayer, we will share in the Lord's Prayer. Draw us together now, O God, in the prayer that you've given us as a gift. Might we say together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. As I draw us for a special blessing right now, I want to take us over to the Trinity United Church sign. We have a lot of traffic going by our church, and we have inspiring messages of hope and best wishes. And we are certainly hoping with this sign here that, if possible, you can safely perhaps come here this Thursday. And it's going to be well organized, and it's going to be a time to enjoy the gifts of Christmas. And of course, we'll be wearing masks, but we'll hope for some good weather, and that all will be okay. And as I give a little blessing here right now, our friend Tim is over there at the house, and he's usually sending a little wave. There he is waving right now. And it's a real blessing when someone just kind of makes their day with a honk or a wave and assures us that we're not alone. So my friends, as you go forth into this coming week, may the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, may God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and might God give you an everlasting peace and trust this day and forevermore. Amen. Hope to see you on Thursday. And just a little reminder, each Thursday at 10 in the morning, if you register, 5 to 10 people are certainly welcome to come. Amen.